Hi, my name's Sam. I am an English teacher working for Beyond Secondary Resources. Today, I'm going to take you through a lesson in story writing, and in particular, story writing and openings to stories. I'm following a lesson pack on the Twinkle website, which there is a link to at the bottom of this YouTube video. If you want to link through to the resource, you can do. Um, Obviously, this is a little bit strange because actually I'm recording this, I'm not doing this live, so I can't actually respond to any feedback that you give me at all, which is odd. So, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave gaps in the sort of teaching segments that I deliver to you. And what I suggest you do at those times is that you actually pause the video. In fact, I'll prompt you to pause the video, do a little bit of work, and then restart the video again. And that way, it will give you the chance to kind of carry out some of the exercises that the lesson contains. So, story openings. What I'm going to do to begin with, I've put another link in the video at the bottom, in the box below the video, and that link is to a 3-minute clip of Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. If you've not seen Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, then what have you been doing for the last 38 years? But what I suggest you do is go and click on that clip now, and have a look through that. Now this is the 3 opening minutes, the first 3 minutes of that movie. And when we're thinking about writing stories, it's quite similar to when we think about watching a film. What the writer is trying to do is to hook you in, the writer or the filmmaker. They're trying to hook you so that you want to continue watching. They're trying to intrigue you. They're trying to lay down little crumbs, little seeds of evidence of what might be to come, but only give you so much, not to answer all of the questions, but to make you want to keep watching or to keep reading in order to enjoy the whole of the rest of the film or the book. So I'm going to stop talking for a moment. I suggest then that you pause this video, you click the link to the Indiana Jones video and watch that. And as you're watching that, I want you to ask yourself this question. What is it that the filmmaker is doing to try and hook me, to try and make me want to continue watching this film? These are the notes that I made. It's kind of annoying. I'll read this out in a minute. It's kind of annoying that at that last moment, at that last reveal where we first see the face of Indiana Jones, that YouTube then sticks 2 more videos on the side of the clip so that you can't actually see the screen properly when it happens. Anyway, right, what have you got? What have you written down or thought about? What is the filmmaker doing? So Steven Spielberg, the director, George Lucas, the writer. What are they trying to do to draw us in, to make us think, I want to keep watching this because I'm not sure what's happening? Well, maybe I've just given something away because we're not sure what's happening. And that's kind of key here, isn't it? We don't know what's happening. And so if we like this sort of adventure film, then we want to find out what's happening. Let me tell you what I've written down on my list. So obviously, creepy music. From the very beginning, we open with a sort of slightly creepy score. You can't do that in writing. But you can talk about sound, and there's more sound going on in here, which I'll come to in a minute. They're on a mission. but we don't know what. It's these three people and they are journeying. We can see they're traveling, we can see they're journeying, but where are they going? What are they doing? We don't know. And therefore, the only way to find out is to continue watching or to go online and read spoilers. But we won't do that. And then we were getting these kind of eerie, monkey, cackly noises, these eerie manic animal sounds. And that was building on the tension. Now, you can't put a film score in a piece of writing, but you can put sound effects. You can talk about the sounds. So you could describe the sound of the monkeys cackling. What else have I got? Bats. Nice. Who doesn't like a good bat flying out? Again, that's the sort of thing you can describe in a piece of writing. You can go into as much detail as you want when it comes to describing the detail, the background, what is happening all around the character. There was a scary statue. Again, that's something you could describe in a piece of writing. The lovely thing that they do here, and the lovely sort of direction here, is that the character is not being revealed. So we know that the guy who is leading must be the person that we're meant to be focusing on because he is leading. We see the faces of his two accomplices, but we never see his face until the end of that 3-minute sequence. And so we keep seeing the back of this man with his hat on, sort of disguised by shadows and disguised by his hat, but we don't see his face up until that last moment. And that's a beautiful reveal. And again, that is something you could do in a piece of writing. The reader can't actually see what you're writing, so you can choose how much you reveal to a reader very slowly as time goes on. You can feed it slowly. You could obviously reveal it straight away, but that sort of mystery, that enigma, that air of who is this person, is really nicely done in that sequence. And again, it's something you can do in a piece of writing too. Danger is hinted at, the bats, the statue, the poisonous dart, and then you get this gorgeous dialogue where the two people who are following the main man who happens to be Indiana Jones, are talking about the poisonous dart, and they say, they're following us. And the other one says, if they knew we were here, well, who are they? And why are they following them? And why are these people here? We don't know. And so there's all these little clues that we want the answer to, but it's not going to give them it's not going to give us the answer yet. We know that if we carry on watching the film, we're likely to get an answer. But these clues are laid down, and we really want to see where this is leading to. So it's a masterfully shot piece of work. As I say, you can do very similar things with a piece of writing as well. So what I needed to do now, there is, like I say, there is a link to this resource underneath the video on YouTube. If you click through to that link, you should come to this page. And when you download, you will find this folder here, and we are looking at openings, I'm pretty sure. Let me just double check. Now where is all my stuff? I had lined up all of my things very nicely. No, okay, here we go. Openings. Yep. So this is what we want. That document entitled openings. What we've got here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 story openings. So these are genuine pieces of fiction. Some of them well known, some of them less well known. and they are the early stages of each of these books. So sort of the opening stages, the opening few pages of each of these books. They might not be the very first thing in each of the books, but they are near the beginning, and they are there to give you an impression of techniques that writers use to try and draw you in, to try and capture your attention. So what we're going to do, I will go through this first one with you now. This is from 1984, which is a famous dystopian piece of fiction by a very famous author called George Orwell. And he wrote this, oh, I don't know when he wrote it actually, but a long time before 1984. I'll check that in a minute. A long time before 1984. So 1984 was the future, and he was imagining the future, and he imagined it in a pretty gloomy way. If you've not read the book, then, and well, if you want to feel depressed, then go and read this book. It is a classic. So we are going to fill in the column in the middle here. So we've got opening, then questions you ask yourself. That's what we're looking at now. We're going to do the first one together, and then I'm going to say, right, pause the video and have a go at the other 6 after that. Now, you may not have a printer at home. I've not got a printer here, so I'm not going to print this out. I'm just going to jot down my answers to these on a sheet of paper or in my notebook or on a post-it. I've got some post-its, as you would have seen. You can draw it out in nice columns if you want, or you could just jot it down in you could put 1984 next to the margin and then just say questions you ask yourself and jot down some questions. However you want to lay it out is fine. What's most important is that you do write down a few little ideas for each one. So here we go. The opening, I'll read it. It's on the screen. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. Winston Smith, his chin nuzzled into his breast in an effort to escape the vile wind, slipped quickly through the glass doors of Victory Mansions, though not quickly enough to prevent a swirl of gritty dust from entering along with him. So that is the opening to 1984. Immediately, I am struck by that very first sentence. The clocks were striking 13. Well, clocks don't strike 13, do they? I thought clocks just went up to 12. Obviously, you have a 24-hour clock, but you don't get church clocks that are 24 hours. So there's something about that. Winston Smith. Who is Winston Smith? We don't know. We're just given his name. So unlike Indiana Jones, instantly he is revealed to us. We know what the character is called, but who is he? We don't know. Quickly through the glass doors. Well, it's a vile wind, so nasty weather. He slipped quickly through the glass doors of Victory Mansions. Victory Mansions. That sounds. Well, it sounds like it should be a nice place. Victory Mansions. Why is it called Victory? What is the victory? Who's won? Though not quickly enough to prevent a swirl of gritty dust from entering along with him. It sounds a bit grim, a bit grim and gritty, doesn't it? It doesn't sound like sort of beautiful, clean houses. So there you go. There's a few questions that I've just asked myself. So I will go ahead and jot those down on a post-it note here. So what I suggest you do now is pause the video. I want you to go through each one of these 6 others and write down 1, 2, 3 questions that you can think of in terms of what information are we not getting and what information might the reader want to know. You may be talking about yourself as the reader. You might not be particularly interested in this book. So, and if you're not, then think about people who would be interested. What would they want to know? Right, I've made some notes. Hopefully you have too. I'll talk you through what I've got down in just a moment, but thought I would correct myself. There are a couple of things that I've just checked out whilst you've been doing that work, which would be good of me to clear up. So, 1984. Didn't know what year it was written in. It was written in 1949. So George Orwell, when he was producing that piece of work, he was looking ahead 35 years and thinking, what is the world going to be like in 35 years' time? Which I suppose the equivalent now, we're in 2020, so what is 35 years in the future? And what would that look? 35 years in the future, of course, is 2055. So if we were to sort of think about, okay, what does 2055 look like? What does it feel like? Then that is the future, and that's what George Orwell was writing into that future. But the other thing that I've cleared up is actually all of these pieces of text are indeed from the very first lines of each of these books. I looked at one from Lord of the Flies and I thought that can't be the beginning of that book, but it is. So they are all the very first few lines or paragraphs from the book. Let me find them again. It becomes so difficult, doesn't it, on a computer when you have lots of different tabs open. So I might need to just reopen this one. So it was openings. Here we go. And I'll move that over there. Okay. So the sun does not go down. So this is from Midwinter Blood. Midwinter Blood is a young person fiction, piece of young person fiction written in 2011, and it is described as a paranormal love story. I've not read it, but I just have read the synopsis, and it sounds rather good. So that might be quite a good one to have a look at whilst you're seeking things to do. The sun does not go down. This is the first thing that Eric Seven notices about Blessed Island. There will be many other strange things that he will notice before the forgetting takes hold of him, but that will come later. So my questions, what I was asking, scientifically, how can the sun not go down? I hope that's going to be explained. The forgetting before the forgetting takes hold. What the heck is the forgetting? That sounds ominous. What is it? And Blessed Island. Blessed Island struck me a bit like Victory Mansions in 1984. It's a very intriguing name. Why is it called Blessed Island? Does that mean it is a happy place or not? And I suspect maybe not, because the forgetting doesn't sound terribly good. So there's all these little clues, and I want to put them together. I want to string them together, and I want to read more about what's going on here. Christmas Carol, very famous Charles Dickens novel from 1843, which is on the GCSE syllabus. So it's very likely that if you are going to be doing your GCSEs in the next year or so, or a few years, or if you're doing them at the moment, very likely that you will look at A Christmas Carol. Why is Marley dead? Oh, sorry, I'm not reading the. I'm reading my notes. Okay, so the piece of writing, Marley was dead to begin with. There is no doubt whatever about that. Sort of quite compelling as a first line. Marley was dead to begin with. Why is Marley dead? Is the obvious question there. That's what I've written down. And then this phrase, to begin with. Does that mean that that's the first thing that Charles Dickens is telling us? Or does that mean that he's going to come back to life again? Or something? It's a short section, so that's the only questions I've got about that one. Then Everything, Everything by Nicola Yoon. Nicola Yoon is a Jamaican-American author, and she wrote this book in 2015. And again, it's another piece of young person fiction, so it might be worth having a look at. And it's about a girl with a 17-year-old with a debilitating illness who sort of slowly sort of pushes the boundaries on what she can and can't do. I've not read it, but it sounded again quite interesting from the synopsis. I've read many more books than you. Doesn't matter how many you've read, I've read more. Believe me, I've had the time. Well, one of my first questions was, well, how many have you read? But also, how many have I read? And it made me kind of like start to clock up in my head. How many books have I read? And actually, I don't know. So I can't compare, I'm afraid, with the character in this story. But it is an interesting way to get the reader to kind of just get the reader on side and think, oh yeah, think about my life as well now as part of this kind of storytelling. And they're making some quite bold statements there. Who are they? Why have they got the time? I think that's the obvious one. I've had the time. Why? Why have you got the time? And if we know that it's a 17-year-old with a debilitating illness which keeps her housebound, then that's possibly why she has the time. The next one was Lord of the Flies, which again is on the GCSE syllabus, so it may be something that you do at GCSE. This is a 1954 novel by William Golding about a group of boys who end up on their own without adults on an island, and it's sort of testing how would people behave if they, particularly young people, how would they behave if they are left for a long period of time without any supervision. And it opens with the boy with the fair hair lowered himself down the last few feet of rock and began to pick his way towards the lagoon. Though he had taken off his school sweater and trailed it now from one hand, his grey shirt stuck to him, and his hair was plastered to his forehead. All round him the long scar smashed into the jungle was a bath of heat. Who is the boy? That's my question. That's what I've written down. What is the scar in the jungle? Why are we being introduced to this boy in this way without it telling us who he is? It's a little bit like the Indiana Jones intro. It's got a jungle for one thing, but the boy is being described, but not in loads of detail, but not revealed. We don't know who the boy is. Noughts and Crosses, another piece of dystopian fiction. I keep using that word dystopian. Dystopian is a dystopia is an imagined future world that is bad. The world has gone bad. Do you know what the opposite of that is? The opposite of a dystopia is a utopia. So a utopia is an imagined future world that is all beautiful, goodness and light and nice. Dystopia is bad. Noughts and Crosses, written in 2008. Again, another young person fiction. Again, I've not read it, but it sort of has a very good reputation. Honestly, Mrs. Hadley, said Meggie McGregor, wiping her eyes, that sense of humour of yours will be the death of me yet. Jasmine Hadley allowed herself a rare giggle. The things I tell you, Meggie, it's lucky we're such good friends. Well, as a starting point, obviously a joke has just been cracked, but I haven't heard the joke. I've just heard the response to it from Meggie McGregor. What joke has just been told? There's also a suggestion of death there. That sense of humour of yours will be the death of me. And often where you get death mentioned in a sort of slightly hidden way early in a story, then it suggests that death may be around the corner. Maybe Meggie McGregor is going to die in this book. I don't honestly know. Who are these people? We don't know anything about them except for their friends. Why are they friends? And then finally, the last one was Pride and Prejudice. It's a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. That's from Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. She wrote it in 1813. It's one of her famous romance novels. I suppose this one makes me want to challenge it a little bit. Do all wealthy men want to get married? Really? And who is saying this? Is this the narrator saying this? Is this the author saying this? Can I challenge it? I want to challenge this as a statement. Is there room for me to challenge this way of thinking in the book? So I want to read further to know if this is something that the author believes, or the narrator believes, or somebody else. I need to read on so that I can find out more about that as a statement. That is everything that I have come up with. The next task then is the second column on that openings worksheet then. So the middle column we've just filled in, questions you ask yourself. Again, if you've printed this off, then you could have written that on there. And if you printed this off, you'll be able to write in the third column, how is the opening effective? If you've not printed it off, then, as I suggested before, jot down your ideas on a workbook or on a piece of paper, post-it note, and see what you come up with. I suggest you take 3 or 4 minutes, go through the column here, questions you ask yourself, and then how is that effective? Basically, what we're trying to do is we're trying to come up with a list of techniques that an author can use, that you could use if you were to author, that would be effective in writing the opening to a story. Let me tell you what I'm thinking about Midwinter Blood. Like I say, the questions I ask myself are, how can the sun not go down? The forgetting, what is that? Blessed Island, why is it called that? Sorry, I've jumped ahead, haven't I? 1984 is the first one, but I'm going to look at Midwinter Blood. So my thought is, how is it effective? I think it's really doomy. It makes me think that bad things are going to happen. The sun does not go down. That's really doomy. Strange things is also mentioned, and like I say, the forgetting, which sounds terribly ominous. So that's why I think it's effective. I want to read on and find out about this gloomy, doomy place where it sounds like bad things are going to happen. As I say, take 3 or 4 minutes and just write down some notes on how that opening is effective. It's made you ask those questions. How is that effective in terms of getting you to read onwards? So hopefully you've written some ideas down there. So how is the opening effective? I've got, so for 1984, actually for me it's not the most, it doesn't have a huge hook in it, that opening. I don't know if you feel that as well. I think the biggest question I had there was about Victory Mansions. Why is it called that? But when you combine it with the title of the book, I think that's why it feels the most effective. So 1984, and if you think about a book called 2055, and then you write an opening to that, it's that sort of combination of title and opening. And in 35 years' time, will life feel sort of like it does now? So how is the opening effective? I actually haven't written anything down for that, but I would say I want to know more about this future world, is what I would say. I don't think that's given away, particularly in the opening, to be honest. Midwinter Blood, we said it's that doomy sense of dread, and I want to read more to see whether or not that develops. Christmas Carol, how is it effective, the opening? Well, I want to know more about this character, Jacob Marley. Who is he? Why is he dead? Is he dead? Is he going to stay dead? And those sorts of questions. Everything. Turn the page. I'm intrigued by this character. This character has sort of challenged me to say, I've read more books than you. I'm intrigued by that. I want to know more about that character and see if they really have read more books than me and why. So the character particularly has intrigued me there. Lord of the Flies. I just want more details to be filled in. I want to know the character. I want to know the setting. It's a blonde boy. It's a scar-shaped smash in the jungle. I want to know more about that. Noughts and crosses. Again, that's similar to the other one. There is that sense of dread because of that the use of the word death. That sense of humour of yours will be the death of me yet. I want to see if that is what happens. If this person, Megan McGregor, is going to die, and if it is going to have anything to do with Jasmine Hadley. And then finally, Pride and Prejudice. I want to see if this perspective, I don't like that statement. I want to see if this perspective is carried through the whole novel, or if this is just a sort of provocative kind of statement to get me on board. So that's how. Next task then is you will need to find your folder again. I have found it underneath all of my tabs on my screen, and you need to decide whether you're going to do the slightly easier version or the harder version of the next worksheet, which is write your own. So you need to click on the write your own file. The LA stands for lower ability and the HA stands for higher ability. The only difference is the lower ability one has some sort of some vocabulary to guide you through this task. So this task is, you are given a brief synopsis for a story, and you need to write the opening to that story. And the lower ability task features useful vocabulary. So the first one, hopefully you've got that open now, but the first one says, a family move into a new house which they soon discover is haunted by an evil spirit. And the lower ability task, there are some suggested words that you could use in that opening. You can see on the worksheet, again, if you've got a printer print out the worksheet and work in those boxes. If you don't have a printer, then write it down on a piece of paper in a workbook. Actually, you could also write it down on a device as well if you'd rather work on a device, obviously. It's a small space on the worksheet, so you're not expected to write loads for this. It's just a little taster. It's just basically to practice some of those things that we've been talking about with the other story openers. So think about Indiana Jones. What is the author doing to involve you in that film? Think about these 7 books that we've read. What is the author doing to involve you in those stories, to make you want to read more, to hook you? And try and copy some of those ideas into your own work. So there are 3 story openings there. I would suggest that you take 5 to 10 minutes to go through those. I don't think you need to write, well, don't write loads, unless you really want to write a full story, then go on with it, go ahead. But really, it's just more of an exercise in trying out some of these things. So think about the questions on that worksheet, how the opening is effective, and try and emulate, that means sort of copy or replicate that into your own piece of writing. But feel free to only keep it very, very brief. Okay, like I say, take about, well, let's say 10 minutes. Take 10 minutes to have a go at writing an opening to those 3 stories. Finally, for this lesson, what I want you to do is to try and capture some of the things that you've learned from everything that you've done. So from that starter with the Indiana Jones movie, from the 7 books that we wrote down, how they try to hook us, and from your own experience now of writing your own pieces of fiction. The last thing in that folder that we've not spoken about in the resource folder is a document called Story Openings List. And if you open that up, then you'll see you've got a worksheet with a scroll on it, and on the scroll there are 10 bullets in a list. What I want you to do finally is write down the different techniques that you could use to open a story, using all of that knowledge that we've been talking about and collecting, and make your list there. Again, if you can print it, then you can print that sheet off and write down 10 things there. If you haven't got a printer, then you can easily do this by writing in your book, on a device, on a piece of paper. So have a go at that. I'll give you 2 minutes to write 10 things down. Okay, I have written down 10 things here, 10 sort of useful tips for myself when writing the opening to a story, and I wonder if they match with some of the ideas that you've come up with as well. So I'll read through my list as I go through. Have a look at your own list and think about, have I got that, or have you got different ideas? Or if you've not managed to fill in all 10 slots, then here's some ideas here. So number 1, I've said, don't reveal what is going on too early. So a few of those examples we saw, the Indiana Jones one is obvious. We weren't introduced to that character's face until the end of that opening sequence. So kind of keep things hidden, keep things mysterious. Number 2, again, I was thinking about the Indiana Jones clip and the noises, so describing the noises that make a place and a setting more intriguing. I've actually said introduce character slowly, which that's number 3, which kind of is like number 1. But I suppose number 1 is don't reveal what is going on. So where are these people going? Number 3 is introduce character slowly. So who is this person? Number 4, a hint at danger is quite a good way of sort of compelling somebody to read on, because a reader might think, I hope they're going to be okay. Number 5, drop in little clues as to what might happen later on in the story without actually talking about them. Number 6, I'm just realizing that some of my ideas are quite similar. Number 6 is a sense of doom. So I was particularly struck by that passage from, back to my book, from Midwinter Blood, and the sense of doom that it gave us. That was nice. Challenge the reader. So the everything one about the books, and that I've read more books than you. Well, I feel challenged by that, so I want to read on and challenge this assumption. And the same with the Pride and Prejudice one as well. I feel challenged by that statement. I want to read on to see if I can agree with this author or this narrator later on. An intriguing setting is at number 8. I've got number 9, an intriguing character. And number 10, I was actually struggling a little bit, but I was thinking about the 1984, we had the title 1984, which suddenly makes that opening paragraph more compelling, because the title is The Future, and therefore we know that that opening paragraph is the future. And what does that mean, or what's it like? That is the end of the lesson. I hope that you have got something out of it. This is the first time I've ever done a pre-recorded lesson in anything. I normally stand in front of a class and talk to real people, so this is a little bit odd, but I hope this has been useful for you. As things stand, comments are disabled on the Beyond Secondary Resources YouTube channel, so actually you can't leave any comments on there, sadly. Maybe I'll talk to the guy who looks after it and see if we can enable comments. But I would love to hear some of your story openings, or to hear what you thought of this lesson. If you want to write down your story openings, then you could leave them as comments on the resource page on the Twinkle website, or if the comments are enabled on our YouTube video, then you could comment on that as well. Anyway, we'd love to hear your thoughts, and I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you round, even though I can't see anyone at all. Have a good day.